Hey there guys, so today's video is just going to be a get ready with me, and I want to talk about memory recall while we're reading. And I actually have been thinking about this for a while, and I did see a video by a certain booktuber that I'm going to link below. But I also just want to comment on people's perspective and just view of the book community, and the view of people that think just because you read a book in a day or two means that you lied or you didn't really read it. And also just memory recall of the books that we've read. She made the video because some people were kind of doubting that if you are a certain person that will read 70 books on Audible at 3 times the speed, and you read 70 books in that 1 month, that means that you didn't really read them, or they're lying, or this or that. Maybe they are. Who knows? But I'm not someone that's going to comment on that. I'm not going to waste my time dragging somebody else for what they're reading. It only matters if you're reading. It doesn't matter how fast you read. It doesn't matter if you finish a book in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. It doesn't matter how fast you finish it or how slow you read. It doesn't matter. It only matters if you're reading. So I'm just going to say my thoughts on this and what I think as I've been reading way more, because I think since I started reading again, I've read over 40 books, which is actually freaking crazy. I never thought I was going to become this type of reader, and now it's my favorite thing to do in my spare time. So the thing that I want to talk about first is people think and she talked about this in her video. She said that how do you have the time, and most people do ask this to every booktuber, how do you have the time to read in general, or how do you have the time to finish a book in a day? You can't finish a book in a day. People will doubt these people for finishing a book in a day. And as I've read and as I've been reading more, I've actually realized and have also kind of surprised myself that it takes less time to finish a book in a day than it is to finish a show. And some people will binge a whole season in a day of a TV show. For me, I don't really do that anymore. I used to do that. I used to binge 6 or 7 episodes of a show at a time. I would binge the entire first season of Doctor Who, or a really short Netflix show that was maybe 8 episodes, and they were half-hour shows. But honestly, as I've been reading more, I'd much rather be spending my time finishing a book. And when you actually break down the length of the book and how big the font is and how many words are on the pages, and you divide it into maybe 3 or 4 hours, and you will find, you'll obviously get the number of pages that you need to read in an hour in order for you to finish the book. But that's usually what I do, is that I just take the total of the book and divide it by 3 hours, or I divide it by 2 days or 3 days, and then I see how many pages that I need to read in a day in order for me to finish the book in that certain time frame. That's just how I do it. I'm sure everybody's method is different, but what I really want to stress is that I really hate this stigmatism or stereotype or thought, a point of view is what I mean to say, that people can't finish books this quickly. And also, if you don't remember everything that happened in the book, which we're going to get into memory recall in a second, that means you didn't really read it. And I just think that is absolute bullshit, to be honest. Like, that actually really annoys me because I've went through this going through my reading journey and my own personal experience of what did I actually remember about the books or the books that I read. And I actually found it quite difficult for me to recall, certain things that happened in the books. And I'm like, did I really, and I was kind of thinking in my head, like, especially when I read Throne of Glass, because it's a lot of information. That is 8 books. It's over 4,000, 5,000 pages of reading. That's a lot of information for your brain to take in. And it's like when I was trying to make my Throne of Glass video on everything and my reaction and my favorites of the series and my least favorites, it was really hard for me to remember certain things that happened in some of the books, like from Crown of Midnight to Empire of Storms. It was really hard for me to remember like what happened in each book. Like, I was getting confused on whether or not this happened in Heir of Fire or if it happened in Queen of Shadows. But I really think that us as humans, we take in so much information in a day. We take so much information in our brains, in our whole lives, as in our lifespan, that it is literally physically and especially mentally impossible for us to remember every single detail, every single plot point, every single character's name, every single thing that happened in a book. Like, it's just impossible unless you have really good memory recall or you have like a photographic memory. I also think it has to do a lot with what age you are when you start reading, or if you stop reading and you start reading again. But I really think, as younger adults, like teenagers and people in their 20s, have just better memory recall than people that are older, like myself. I'm 35 years old. I'm not going to remember everything anymore. I'm getting older. I'm not going to remember half the shit that happens, even in my daily routine or in what even happens in a day. That's just what happens when you get older. Like, our brains can't process as much as we used to. That's my mentality anyway, but I really do think it has a lot to do with what age you are. So that's why I think that younger people are much faster and better at recalling most things that happen in one book. But I also think it has to do a lot with the length of the book. How long is it? I'm going to remember something or a lot more about a book that was like 200 to 300 pages than something that was like over 600 pages. That's just the way it is. Like, there's like in A Court of Wings and Ruin, that's 700 pages, and Kingdom of Ash is 980 pages. That's still going to be the longest book that I ever read, or the longest book that I have read as of right now. And I don't remember half of the stuff that went on in that book. I know I loved it, but just because I can't remember half the things that happened doesn't mean that I actually read it. And I think one of the biggest factors, besides like how long the books are and how short they are, I also think it has a lot to do with how into the story you are. Do you like the characters? Do you like the plot? Do you like the pacing? Do you like the, are you getting bored? I think that so many factors contribute to how well we read and how much we remember about something, just based on the writing style and the pacing and the plot and all of that, and whether or not we like the characters or not, or whether or not we like where the plot is going and how long the book is and how invested we are into reading at certain times. Maybe there's some times where you're just not really feeling reading right now. Like, there's some times where, like, I just need to take a break because I'm, like, zoning out and I'm not really taking the information in, just because my brain is probably, like, exhausted. Because that's just what happens when you're reading, is that we're taking in so much information. Sometimes your brain is like, you need a break. So even though for me, I just want to keep on reading, I also think it has a lot to do with, like, the writing style and the way that the story is flowing and the way that the writing is flowing. And I find myself obviously taking in a lot more information if the book is shorter and if it's faster paced. Or, like, I remember a lot more of, like, a thriller than as opposed to, like, a long epic fantasy book like Throne of Glass. So, like, when I was thinking about, like, why couldn't I remember half the things that happened in Throne of Glass, it's just because it was a really long series and it was a lot of information. So, for people to comment that, if you don't remember what happened in the book, or if you don't remember, like, the characters' names or half of the things that happened, you didn't really read the book. No. That is not true whatsoever, unless you are embellishing a little bit and trying to remember certain things about the books because you want to just say that you read 70 books. I think that would be the only time that I would be a little bit, like, suspicious, but at the same time, like, that's their decision. Like, and also, I feel like people just say these things just because they're jealous of people that are finishing more books than they are. It's not a competition. Again, it only matters if you're actually just reading. And I also think this contributes as to why we want to reread certain books, because we either want to, I think the number one reason for me is because I want to refresh my memory on what actually happened in the book. So if I do reread them, then I will remember a lot more. But some fantasy books, like I said, like Throne of Glass or longer series, are very hard to remember everything because there's so much that happens. Like, if I'm gonna read, I think I would remember a lot more of, like, a fantasy trilogy or, like, duology or just a standalone book rather than, like, a book series that's, like, 5 to 8 to almost 10 books long. It's a lot of information. Like, people don't understand that, like, if something affects you mentally and emotionally in a book, it is actually exhausting. Mentally exhausting, and emotionally draining sometimes. Like, when I was reading, I don't know which color I want to use. I think I'm going to use this one. I was going to use the other one, but I'm using the Lilac You a Lot palette by ColourPop, because this is usually, like, the first spring palette that I whip out to use, and also I haven't used ColourPop in, like, a few days, so it's like I really just want to use this one because, like, it is spring now. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, so, like, if I want to reread a book, or if I was, like, emotionally impacted by a certain part that happened in the book, it also depends on, like, how emotionally attached I am to the characters. And like I said, if you're invested or if you really care about the characters, especially in, like, a series, you go just on this mental journey with these characters and you can get really emotionally invested. So that's why I think that, unless it's, like, a book that really impacted me emotionally, like The Dead Romantics or, like, The Only One Left, or even It Starts With Us and It Ends With Us, there were some parts in some of those books that I was just crying my eyes out, because there's some things that I think that books can connect to us even more deeply emotionally than, like, a show or a movie, unless it's 6 Feet Under, of course. because 16 Under is like the greatest TV show of all time for me. And I cried my eyes out at some parts of that show. It's such an amazing show. I recommend everyone to watch it because it's fucking fantastic. I don't know one person that hates that show. It's like the best show ever. I love it so much. But anyway, I just think we need to get rid of this like negative mentality because we're jealous. Because these people are jealous of, you know, people reading at a faster pace. Like Larry reads, oh my God, she's one of my favorite booktubers. She is so funny. She comments on it all the time. She says, like, people are always, like, bashing her and telling her, like, oh, you didn't really read the book, and how can you read that fast in a day? How is that all you do? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, are you serious? And she says the same thing, that she says, I'm not going to hate on you and your reading journey. I'm just going to be happy for you and cheering you on and clapping along with you because you're reading. And again, that's Larry's job. That's what she does. So it's like, and I think that she's freaking hilarious. And I think she's extremely popular because she connects with people, with humor. And I just think she's hysterical. But also, like, for me, I really do love, you know, humor in books. That's like my favorite thing. I also love magical worlds. I love magic in like any aspect of any fantasy book or any book in general. Because there's some like romantic books that actually have fantasy elements to them, like the 7-Year Slip or like the Dead Romantics. But like, I think it has to do with like the emotional impact. Like, we kind of remember like our emotions even more when we're reading something or when we're recalling what we reacted to. Maybe not necessarily everything that happened in the book, but that's what's going to stand out to us for what we remember. And there was something else I was about to say about, I think that we also remember the bad parts of what we disliked about a book even more so than some of the things that were great about the book. Like, I think that certain things about like books that I disliked or things that I didn't like about it just stick out to us more in general because that's just how humans are. We're going to remember negative things even more so than positive things because they kind of just stick out to us more. And like our brain is like, this is why you didn't like it. This is why you don't like it at all. This is why you hate something. Is because it just sticks out in our brain a lot more. So I'm just going to grab my sponge and then we're going to talk more about memory recall. Okay, so now I'm just going to prime. But like I was saying before, us as humans take in so much information in our entire lives, and our brains are pretty much like miracles in themselves on how much we actually do take in, that, you know, I think that this is more so like a stereotype and also a point of view of like younger teenage people that are like, you know, or like maybe it might be some older people that are just bitter about like how much time that you have to read, or I don't know. But like, I feel like it's just in the book community, it's kind of hate for no reason, because it's like, why would you do that and waste your time on ruining somebody else's reading experience and their reading journey and what they thought about the book that they read, just because you're jealous that you didn't have that much time or didn't read that many books in a month or a year? Again, it doesn't matter how many books you read. I mean, I just want to read more this month because I'm obsessed with reading right now, and I have been obsessed since I started reading again. But I could not possibly tell you everything that happened in every single book that I've read this year. It's just impossible. Again, it has to do with like how invested we are in the story, and I think that the writing style has a lot to do with it, because I think that what makes great books and good books to me is just the pacing and the writing style and how the writing flows and the pacing. Because if there's like a lull in a book, I'm gonna lose interest. Like, if there's like one boring part, it's like, and the story ends up still being something that I connect with or something that I really like, I'm still gonna like the book overall. But if I'm starting to get bored with a book, especially, I'm not gonna like it. And again, like, writing is such a personal thing and reading is such a personal thing, that we all experience, and she was saying this in her video as well, that we all experience reading differently. We all react to reading books differently. Like, maybe when we're watching like a TV show or a movie and we all gasp like like to a jump scare or like something like that, that's not as personal because we're all going to react that way if something scares us. But if we, like, again, get emotionally impacted, like, I have cried my eyes out at so many books at this point that I didn't think that that was going to happen. It's like this feeling where, like, your heart feels like it's literally coming out of its chest because you just connect so much emotionally to what is happening in the book right now that you just can't help but cry because your body is gonna cry because you're so emotionally impacted or you read something that was really sad. So I just think people have to spend less time on hating on people for that and just more time reading. Like, why don't you just read more then if you're gonna spend your life like commenting on other people's videos? Like, I barely even comment on videos that I like anymore and I really just find myself not even watching as much YouTube anymore, or maybe not as much TV shows anymore, or I'm still watching a few TV shows. Like, I'm still watching Desperate Housewives. I'm literally, like, I love it so much. I'm so addicted to that show. But there are some, like, plot holes or, like, plot points that are kind of absurd or, like, things that they don't remember to, like, touch up on. But it's still a great fucking show. Like, I actually find that the show that had no plot holes, maybe, like, one in the entire series, again, was 6 Feet Under because it was so perfect. I do want to, like, rewatch that show at some point, but the reason why we, like, rewatch shows is because we want to remember what happened. Sorry. My boyfriend keeps on texting me. I'm like, can you, like, be quiet so I can finish getting ready, or I have to respond to you every 5 seconds, so. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because it really was bothering me for a while. And now I just want to, like, do, like, maybe 2 books and talk about how much I remember about the book and how much I don't. But we'll do that in a second. So I want to do Yellowface because I feel like that's the book that actually sticks out to me the most and how much I think I probably remember the most about that book. And the other one, let's do Bride. Let's do one of my favorite books and my least favorite book this year. So let's do Yellowface first. So, so annoying. So in Yellowface, basically it is about this woman, and I actually don't really remember her name. It's something like Flower, like Lily or something like that. I really can't remember her name right now, but I do remember the other character's name. I believe her name was Athena or something like that. And the main character, let's just call her Lily right now, because again, I can't really remember her name, is a white American woman, and Athena is a Asian woman, and they're both published authors, and Athena basically is like a New York Times best-selling writer. Like, everything that she writes is epic, everything that she writes is amazing, everything that she writes is a hit. And Lily, whatever her name is, she is jealous of Athena, and she can't write a bestseller to save her life. So she's like kind of not really friends with Athena, but they do talk, and she's kind of like, Lily's like Athena's like pretty much only friend, because Athena, you know, since she's at the top of her game, not many people like really like her. They're mostly like jealous of her. So basically, one night, Athena invites, like, they go out for drinks, and then Athena invites her back to her apartment, like, to Athena's apartment, to, like, have more drinks and talk, and, like, just talk about, like, Athena's new book coming out, which is, like, a epic war story about Asian war camps. And, what happens is that Athena and Lily decide to have this stupid pancake eating contest, because I think they're like watching a YouTube video about pancake eating contest. Don't ask me why. I think it's just because they were drunk. And Athena ends up choking on the pancakes and just dies. But I think that Lily is like the perfect example of an unreliable narrator. Did she actually kill her? You don't actually ever find out in the book whether or not she just let her die, because basically from her perspective, because if she was an actual good person, she probably wouldn't have done anything else that she did in this book. So she kind of isn't like a great example of an unreliable narrator. So since she tries to do the Heimlich maneuver on her, but she can't save her. She just ends up dying. But everybody like kind of is, sorry, my eyeshadow palette was on my mouse. Everybody assumes that she was responsible, but she never gets charged for it, which is actually surprising, because she does explain her story to the cops and everything. And but when she's still in her apartment, like that night after that happens and before the cops come, like the last page of that chapter basically says that she went into, well, throughout the chapter, she went into Athena's office to look for to just see what was in there. And then she saw that the manuscript for the latest novel that she just finished was on the floor in like a bag. Or actually, maybe it was just in the typewriter, because Athena has to type with a typewriter. Like, that's just her aesthetic. Like, she doesn't use anything electronic. So she writes like all of her notes for books in like these journals. So I do remember quite a lot of this book, but that's really only like the first 30 pages. So Lily ends up taking this manuscript for herself, and she's going to use it to publish her next book. And it ends up becoming like a huge smash success. It ends up becoming like the #1 best-selling book, because Lily's justification for publishing this book was that she improved it, and if she shouldn't let this book just sit and die, basically. Like, she feels like it's her duty and obligation for her to publish this book, and she actually like writes her own personal touches, and she thinks that she's improved the book, and that's her justification as to why this book should be published. And basically it's her convincing herself that she did the right thing. but honestly, it's not the right thing at all. So this already like fucks her, and basically that's what the rest of the book is about. But also, this person, like, because one of the best parts of this book is all the Twitter ranting in this book, and like this one person actually ends up contacting Athena and messages her and tells her, like, not Athena, Lily, and says, I know what you did with the book, because this was actually, because she ends up going to see this person, like, meeting them in public, and it turns out to be, like, Athena's ex-boyfriend, and he knows about what Athena was kind of working on, and he's like, I know that you stole this from her. And, like, Lily is, denying this, like, the whole time. So I remember quite a lot of this book. And I think that's why it was I'm not going to, like, talk about the rest of it, because I don't want to spoil it for you guys if you guys haven't read it yet. But I highly suggest that you do. And I think the reason why it was so extremely popular is because it was so fast-paced, and it was an easy story to get into. And I feel like, all of these, like, easier books to read, minus Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, but they are easy books to get into because Sarah J. Maas is just such a good writer to me. But also, like, I think that she just knows what she's doing. I don't know about Crescent City, though. Like, that's still on my list, but I actually heard that Crescent City isn't as good as Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. Like, I've seen very mixed reviews about Crescent City. So yeah, that's what I remember about Yellowface. Again, I'm not gonna say everything, but I think that's why it was the best fiction book of 2023. I still loved it. I thought it was a great book, and I thought it was so fast paced, and I thought it was such an amazing commentary on the writing industry and the authors industry. And I've been wanting, like, everyone to read this book, like, in my family. I'm like, this book is so good, and I feel like everybody needs to read it. But it's also very short, extremely fast paced. I actually feel like it could have been maybe like 20 pages longer, but I do really love, like, everything about it and how it was written, because I do love, like, the mystery about the book, like whether or not this actually did happen to the real author. So I think that's why it just made it so extremely popular, and whether or not Lily actually ended up having a successful career, because you never really find out after this, because, like, through the rest of the story, she's just, the rest of the book, she's just struggling with whether or not you should tell people, because she feels like a serious case of imposter syndrome. Like, she's like, I didn't really write this book, and she's starting to feel, like, incredibly guilty about it. It's just so good. It's such a well-written book. Now, when it comes to Bride by Ali Hazelwood, it's still the only Ali Hazel book that I've read. And maybe it's because I didn't start with, like, her rom-coms, but at the same time, like, I feel like with rom-coms, like, you don't really have to read those books before you read, like, her newest release, because it's a rom-com. It's not like you really have to get used to her writing style. I feel like with fantasy and thrillers and stuff like that, it's a little bit more important to read certain series before you read the next one. Like, for me, I read Throne of Glass before I read ACOTAR, and a lot of people recommend that you actually read ACOTAR before Throne of Glass, but I found no problem getting into ACOTAR after reading Throne of Glass. I don't think it really makes a difference. And there's certain things about ACOTAR that I love, and certain things about Throne of Glass that I love. So I don't think it ruined my reading experience whatsoever reading ACOTAR after Throne of Glass. So, and just because I got Throne of Glass before I got ACOTAR. So, because my mom bought it for me for Christmas. So let me just grab Hold on. Okay, so when it comes to Bride, basically it's about this vampire named Misery and her and this werewolf alpha male. I don't even remember his name, honestly. So that are I can only usually remember the main characters' names. The main character's name. So basically she has to marry this werewolf alpha to unite the vampires and the werewolves. And for me, I thought that this book was going to be like a lot more bloody. Maybe we would see some tension between the werewolves and the vampires, and she doesn't really build on that like whatsoever. Which that's what annoyed me. And basically that's all I really remember. And I know that the werewolf has this kid that he takes care of. Well, she's actually his sister or half sister or something like that, because her parents died when she was little and he has to take care of her. And basically I was really invested in the first like 100 pages of this book. I thought it was really funny. I thought that their banter was actually really funny with each other. And then like halfway through the book, I just got so bored with it that I just did not care whatsoever anymore. And I don't really want to like talk too much about this because I am going to talk about it in my reading wrap up in March. But I just wanted to compare like good writing to bad writing pretty much. So like kind of like in the middle of the book, it kind of made like a lot more serious turn. And I honestly felt like I was reading like a totally different book at that point. That I basically just forgot mostly everything else that happened. I know that her father ends up betraying her, even though her father is the one that she wanted, that he wanted her to marry this werewolf. So again, they could form more of an alliance and, you know, the vampires and werewolves could get along better. So anyway, oh, and also like, Misery has this best friend because obviously like she doesn't have any family because she's a vampire besides her father. She can't really like hold relationships too much. But the most fun part about this book was the beginning, because it was really funny to listen to and hear about that she is actually living her life in the mortal world, and there's like these really funny parts on where she works, and like their coworkers do know about vampires. Like humans actually do know about vampires and werewolves, like they're kind of working for them. And it was just so funny, like the comments that they would talk about and the things that they would say at work, because like they have this like drill where they have to evacuate the building because the vampire king is coming, which is her father, but they don't know that. Like, they don't know that she's a vampire, like the humans that she works with. So I thought that was hilarious. And also, she has like this best friend that goes missing, and basically like the whole middle of the book is about like finding her friend. And I just found that I just didn't fucking care anymore. Like, at that point, I really wasn't invested. Even in the smut parts of this book, I didn't care. And everybody was making such a big deal about the whole nodding thing, and I didn't even think it was that big of a deal, to be honest. I'm like, it's not like she really described it that much. She was just like, oh, let's not when we're having sex. It was just bizarre and weirdly told. So overall, I really didn't like that book, but also, like, I did remember quite a bit of it. And also, like, their banter, like, with Misery and the werewolf when they first get married, I actually thought was hysterical. And then they kind of lost all of that, like, humor, like, in the middle and the end of the book. And then I was like, I am just so freaking bored. I wasn't even looking forward to reading it and finishing it. That was like the only book that I really wanted to DNF besides, whatchamacallit, The House Across the Lake. But I even got more emotionally impacted and more invested in the characters in The House Across the Lake as compared to, Bride. And I feel like with Ali Hazelwood and Riley Sager, they're very polarizing authors. Like, some people either freaking hate their books or they freaking love them. I'm obviously more of a fan of Riley Sager, but at the same time, I've actually read his highest rated book and his lowest rated book, which is The Only One Left and The House Across the Lake, and I freaking love The Only One Left. I think about that book all the time. It's still my favorite thriller. I love that book so much. And I actually do want to reread it at some point because it's so crazy, like, thinking about Bride and Yellowface and the difference between how a story flows and how good the writing is as opposed to how the writing doesn't flow. And it, I think, is bad writing, to be honest. But I feel like if I read, The Love Hypothesis, because I'm still going to give her another chance. I'm not completing writing her off. I just did not like Bride. I didn't think it was good at all, to be honest. So, and like with Ali Hazelwood, people either love The Love Hypothesis or they hate it. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see. So now I'm just going to apply this new lip oil that I got. This is the Summer Fridays Blush Dreams Dream Lip. It's the Dream Lip Oil in the shade Blush Dreams. They didn't have a nude one, so I just got this one. And I just picked this up yesterday, and I heard that these were actually really good because I really do love the lip butter balm. So I was like, I really wanted to pick this up for a little while. And that feels so nice on the lips. You do feel like it's more oily. And it does have pigment to it, which I actually really like. And that's really pretty. So yeah, I just wanted to, so that's what I recall about both of those books. Again, I'm not going to go too much into Bride, but I kind of wanted to also comment on the extremes on my reaction to them, on whether or not I was emotionally invested or that if I cared about the characters. Sorry, this is taking a while to put on. I'm just going to finish up applying. Okay, you guys, so this is the finished look. Here are the eyes, the cheeks, and the lips. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if I'm in love with the applicator with this, just because, like, I feel like it kind of goes, like, outside the lips a little. I still think it's a really pretty and nice formula. It looks really good on the lips, and I really, really like it. I actually just got hungry now, so I need to get out of here. So anyway, I used the ColourPop Lilac You A Lot palette today. I used this shade in the crease, Zoned Out, and then I used Iffy to darken it up, and then I used Filtered on the outer corners, and then for the lid I used Fluff, and then for the inner corners I used Trainwreck, and that's what I used from the palette. And then for my foundation and everything, I just used the Do It Spray and the Rare Beauty Illuminating Primer, and then I used the Cali Ray Free Dreaming Skin Wellness Diffusing Tint in the shade The One, and then I used the Tower 28 Concealer. And then I set my under eyes with the House Lab powder, and then I set my face with the ColourPop Pretty Fresh powder. And then for my bronzer, I just went into the ColourPop Matte Bronzer, and then I just used the Tower 28 Mascara. And then I used the ColourPop lip eyeliner in the shade Amethyst Hour. And it just looks so pretty. And then I used the Say blush in the shade, because I actually forgot that I haven't used these in a while, so I wanted to use them today. So I used the Say blush in the shade Peach Glow. And then I used the highlighter, which I'm not too crazy about how the highlighter looks, but whatever. I just needed something subtle. This is the shade Pink Glow. And then for my lips, I just used the Summer Fridays lip oil, like I said. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what your thoughts are about, just reading in general. Do you love reading? Do you not like it? Is it for you? Is it not for you? Trust me, if you just decide to read 10 pages a day, just see how you feel, but no pressure. Honestly, if it's not for you, then it's not for you. I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, you don't read, what's wrong with you? It's like liking horror movies and liking comedy movies instead. I'm not gonna judge you for liking horror movies. I actually am fascinated by people that like horror movies. I genuinely want to know more about the movie. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at CPW819 and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. And yeah, just let me know your thoughts. But honestly, like I said, it just matters if you're reading. It doesn't matter how you read or what format you read. Oh, and also one more thing. I don't like that people judge people for liking to read audiobooks or on their Kindle and think that people are only real readers unless you're reading the physical book. That is absolute horseshit as well. You're still reading if you're listening to an audiobook or if you're reading on your Kindle. Especially reading on your Kindle, you're still reading the actual book. You're still reading the actual words. And I actually find myself finishing books faster when I read it on my Kindle. So yeah, anyway, I think that that's bullshit. And I actually haven't really fully listened to an audiobook except for The Honeymoon Crashers. That's the only book that I actually listened to fully on Audible, because that's the way it was written, is that it's only available in Audible format. It's actually an Audible audiobook exclusive. That's the only way you can read it. The only other audiobooks that I've listened to is Kingdom of Ash, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Silver Flames, and Throne of the Fallen, because they're all longer books. And since I didn't want to stop reading them when I'm getting ready for the day or when I'm driving home, I'll just play the audiobook. And also I get 1 free credit a month for Audible, so why not take advantage of it and use it? So, but that's still reading. So, but also it has to do with how much you comprehend when you're listening to an audiobook. Sometimes I don't take in absolutely everything just because there's a noise that's distracting me or something else is taking my attention, or I just don't simply hear it. So I try and keep it right next to me. And also I've been finding that obviously I've been enjoying listening to audiobooks more on my AirPods, because then I really take in everything and listen to everything. But it also has to do with the voices and whether or not you're into who the voice actors are and all of that. So again, there's so many contributing factors, but just because you listen to an audiobook, it means you're reading. And I think it's bullshit if people don't think it's reading just because you're not reading a physical book. Maybe that's the way that they enjoy reading, because again, it's personal to you. It's what you enjoy is not going to ruin anybody else's reading experience for somebody else. It's what you enjoy. So don't listen to people that are like, wow, you're not a real reader that way. That's absolute horseshit. You're still reading. And I actually enjoy reading some books on my Kindle even more than the physical book. Like if a book has like words that are too small and too close together and the pages are too long, I have actually returned a couple of books and purchased them on Kindle because they were actually easier for me to read on Kindle than reading the physical book. Because for me, I find that I'm not really reading it then because I can't take in the information as easily. I found myself just staring at the pages and I'm like, this is really hard for me to read the physical book. So I just purchased it on Kindle and it was so much easier for me to read that way. So sometimes I find it just easier to read on Kindle, and I actually finish books faster that way. I ended up returning Throne of the Fallen and purchasing it on Kindle because it was just way easier for me to read it there. And I actually reread what I read. I only read like the first chapter, and then I'm like, I am getting so confused. I'm not taking in any information. That I reread it on my Kindle, and I actually thought that I hadn't read it because I was like, I literally took in like literally none of this. So I'm glad that I reread it, and now I'm like, oh, now I understand what's going on. So sometimes that just helps the reader like comprehend what they're actually reading. So yeah, that's it. Bye.